Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In today's interesting class, we're going to talk about chain rule. This is Paragon Pathfinders, and on this platform, we take stress out of learning science. On this platform, we make learning science less complicated, fun, and exciting. Now let's go into the main business of the day. What is the chain rule? The chain rule is simply a method of taking the derivative of a function or differentiating a function, right? You know that there are other methods, not just the chain rule. We have implicit differentiation. We have first principle method of differentiation. We've got power rule. We have product rule. We also have quotient rule and many others. But today we're going to talk about chain rule in particular. Now you might be wondering, when do we use the chain rule? We use the chain rule when we have two functions together. For example, you see that y is equal to 2x squared plus 2, all in bracket, raised to the power of 3, right? Now, there are two functions here. The inner function, which is inside the bracket, and the outer function, which is outside the bracket, right? Now, at this point, we have no other choice than to apply chain rule. That is how it works. Now, how do we solve this very problem? Let me solve it so that you see how it works. So we said that y is equal to 2x squared plus 3 raised to the power of 3, right? Good. So now we are going to make an assumption. We say let u be equal to everything inside this bracket, right? U is now going to be equal to 2x squared plus 3. So the idea here is, once you make this assumption, you say let u be inside everything in this bracket. You now use the power rule to differentiate your u. Okay? Once you say let u be everything inside this bracket, you use the power rule. So what's the power rule? Let's now go ahead and find our du over the x. So you see here on the left you have a u, on the right you have an x. So we say du over dx, right? Which means we are differentiating u with respect to x. Okay? If you have y is equal to x, it's going to be dy over dx. If you have u is equal to v, it's going to be du over dv. That's how it works. So in this case, we are going to say du over the x is equal to, for the power rule, we multiply the coefficient of x by the power and subtract 1 from the power. As you see right here, we have a power of 2 up here, right? Good. Now what we're going to do is to multiply the coefficient by the power. It now becomes 2 times 2 give us a 4, right? Now we have our x, subtract 1 from the power. 2 minus 1 give you a 1, right? So we say 2 minus 1, and then plus, this is a constant, right? A constant is a term that does not have an x or y attached to it. It's just on its own, no variable is attached to it. In this case, this 3 is a constant, and in calculus, whenever you differentiate a constant, it's always equal to 0. Therefore, we say 3 multiplied by 0, good, because there is no x attached to it. Since we are differentiating u with respect to x, we are concerned primarily about the x, right? I would say in layman's language, the one you are respecting is the one you are interested in. So we say we differentiate u with respect to x. This means that we are respecting x. So any variable here that has an x has to be worked on, and anyone that does not have an x has to be multiplied by 0 because it's a constant. Now, let's go ahead and simplify. So our du over the x will now be equal to 4x, right? Because 2 minus 1 will give you the 1. This now becomes 4x to the power of 1. The 3 times 0 goes away. Okay, now what next do we do at this point? We have to go back again. Remember that we have only differentiated the inner function. We have not differentiated the outer function. And the outer function is our 3 here. Now, what next do we do? We now say that y is equal to 4x, right? Because 2 minus 1 will give you the 1. This now becomes 4x to the power of 1. The 3 times 0 goes away. Okay, now what next do we do? We have to go back again. Remember that we have only differentiated the inner function. We have not differentiated the outer function. And the outer function is our 3 here. Now, what next do we do? We now say that u to the power of 3. Yes, if you look at this here, you will discover that y is equal to 2x squared, okay, plus 3 raised to the power 3. Now, we now say, since we have differentiated the inner function, we now say that we called everything inside here u, right? Now, what's remaining is what is outside. So we now say the one that's inside now raised to the power of 3. So y is equal to u to the power of 3. Okay? Next up, we have to also go ahead and take the derivative. And we say, since we have a y on the left and a u on the right, we say dy over du is equal to, use the power rule right now, where you multiply the coefficient of u by the power. This u has the power of has a 1 attached to it, right? You now say 3 times 1, that's a 3. You subtract 1 from the power, right? So 3 times 1 will give you a 3. You have your u. And then if you subtract 1 from the power, you have a 2 left. So that means that dy over du is equal to 3u squared. Now, next up, what do? We have to write the chain rule formula. The chain rule formula is giving us dy over dx is equal to du over dx times dy over du. Okay? So this is the chain rule formula. This means that you have to get your du over dx, which you've gotten, and your dy over du. Put them together, you get your dy over dx. That is how it works. Now let's go ahead and look for our du over dx. Our du over dx, as we got, was 4x squared, 4x, have you seen? Our du over dx is 4x, and our dy over du is 3u squared. Now let's plug in and solve. So we say this is equal to, our du over dx is 4x, while our dy over du is 3u squared. Okay, but remember that we made an assumption initially and said, let u be equal to 2x squared plus 3, right? We said let u be equal to everything here. At this moment, we are going to bring it back, okay? Whenever we see u, we put the inner function. So basically, for chain rule, whenever you differentiate, your inner function, which is this thing here, must come back. It must appear in your final solution, and that's how it works. Now, we now replace the u squared, or the u with its value. We say this is equal to 4x times 3 multiplied by our u is 2x squared plus 3 raised to the power 2 in this case, right? Now let's multiply. 4 times 3, or 4x times 3 will give you 12x. And then inside the bracket, you have 2x squared plus 3 raised to the power 2. Therefore, our dy over dx is equal to 12x multiplied by 2x squared plus 3 raised to the power 2. And here is our solution. So, using the chain rule, you must know this very formula. So, it's du over dx times dy over du. First of all, make your assumption. Once you make your assumption, you call the inner function u, and then the outer function now becomes u cubed, right? Or u squared, or it depends on the number it is raised to. Differentiate them separately, and you have your solution. That is how it works. Thank you for joining me, and see you in the next video.